Okay, 7th graders, this is your practice test for week 23. You need to make sure that you're taking notes onto your practice test paper so that you can turn it in tomorrow for points. All right, so let's take a look at number 1. It says create a scatter plot showing the study time for students in Mr. Smith's class. So a scatter plot, if we remember, is just dots. There's no lines connecting the dots, okay? But we do have to read it for a correlation to decide if there's a positive, a negative trend, or if there's no correlation at all, okay? So let's first create our scatter plots. Well, if you remember when we talked especially about science fair graphs and you were looking at data charts, the column on the left is always our x-axis, and the column on our right is always the y-axis. So that means study time is the label that's going to go down here on your x-axis. And then that means that score is what's going to go up here on your y-axis. So now we have to make sure that we plot these points correctly. So we're going to take study time, and we have 1 at 65. Well, 65 is really going to be quite hard to get on the graph, so we might want to count by like 5s along our y-axis. And instead of starting at 0, because it looks like they start at 65 and it goes to 94, let's start at 65. Let's say that this line is 65, and the next line is 70. And then so I'm doing, because my pen is a little bit hard to write on these small things, I'm writing every other line by 10s, but really that means I'm counting by 5s. Okay, and then this down here could count by 1s. So 1, 2, 3 along the way. All right, so let's put our scatter plots in, or our points in. I have study time of 1 with a score of 65. So at study time 1 with a score of 65, I get a dot right here. And another, I have a study time of 1 with a score of 75. So that's going to go here. And now I have a study time of 2.5 with a score of 75. So 2.5 with a score of 75 is there. A score of 3 with 80 is going to be there. A score of 3 with 88 is there. A score of 3.5 with 87 is a little higher. And a score of 4 with 94 is going to be a little higher. Okay, so do we see any sort of pattern? Is there any sort of trend? Can you make any statements? As study time increases, is there something that's happening to those scores? Well, I would say that those scores are also increasing. And so if you were to make a trend line, you would probably say something like, it's looking a little bit positive. Like if I was going to draw a line through the middle of it, it's looking like it's moving up and to the right. And as study time is increasing, score is increasing. So I would say that this correlation is a positive correlation. Okay? And now we get to move on to problem number 2. So problem number 2 says, fill in the parentheses, okay, and you can see them right here. Whoops, let me get a pen color. You can see them right here and right here. Those are the parentheses with the traditional data set given the stem and leaf plot. So we're going to read our stem and leaf plot and write down the numbers. So we have the numbers 21, 23, 27, 30, 38, and 42. And those are the numbers that go in. So we're basically taking our stem and leaf plot and we're writing it into a data set, a traditional data set, meaning within our parentheses, right, what are our numbers, okay? Now it says, determine the minimum, maximum, medium, first quartile, and third quartile, and construct a box and whisker plot. So we know how to do all of these things. We know that our median is our middle number. Okay, so let's solve for it. I'm not going to cross them off because we want to be able to see them, so I'm going to underline them. but 21 and 42 are our highest and our lowest. So those are actually our minimums and our maximums. So I'm going to go ahead and fill them in. My minimum is 21. My maximum is 42. And now I'm going to keep going trying to find my median. So I ended up with two numbers here in the middle. And so I have to take those two numbers and I have to solve for their average basically. So 27 plus 30 is equal to 57, and I need to divide it by 2. So 57 divided by 2 is 28.5. So that becomes my median. So I'm going to put that on my median line, 28.5. And now I have to solve for my first quartile and my third quartile. Okay, so we're going to say that our first is, remember, the quartile is the middle of that lower half. So our data set gets split in the middle here. So I'm going to draw a line that splits it in the middle. Okay, and that line would represent the median at 28.5. So this section over here to the left is our lower quartile. And then, let me just change colors so we can see it better. This section over here is going to be our upper quartile. Well, we have to find the middle. Okay, so where is the middle or the median of that data range? Sorry, changing colors again. Okay, so we want to find the middle. So we want to say, so we need to find the first quartile, which is the median of this lower quartile set. So, so the median, again, you take the highest and the lowest and you cross them off and you're left with that median number. And so in this case, it's 23. And then our other side, the right side, is the same thing. Take the highest and lowest, and we're going to take the middle number, which is 38. Okay, now our last thing to do is create that box and whisker graph. So I need to take my numbers and I need to put them on a number line. And usually our number line has to show all of the numbers. So we need all of the numbers between 21 and 42 kind of represented on our number line. And so I'm going to say that I have 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, 40, 41, 42. Okay, so this is number 42 down here. And this is 21 on this side. And really the numbers should all be written out, or at least the ones that are represented in your data chart should be written out. So I'm trying to fill them in now. Okay, 27, 28, 29, 30. And then we would have 38 and 42. Okay, so now all of our numbers are written out. But what you have to remember is that the box part of your box and whisker graph is, it runs from that quartile 1 to quartile 3. So it creates the box from that space. So our quartile 1 is the 23. So we're going to make our box all the way down to the 38. Now your whiskers run from these points. We always put points on this spot, and then our whiskers run from those quartiles to our minimum and our maximum. Well, our maximum is 42, so we put a dot, and our minimum is 21, so we put a dot. And then the last thing that we have to do is we have to show the median, and the median was 28.5, so we're going to draw a line right there with the 28.5. Okay, so now we've drawn a box and whisker plot, and we've answered all of their questions. So we're going to move on to our next problem, which is graphing. Okay, so if you remember, we have to write the equation of the slope in slope-intercept form. That's y equals mx plus b. Okay, and in order to write this as an equation, we have to fill in the m and we have to fill in the b. Well, if we look very carefully on the chart that they gave us, they actually gave us the b right here. When x is 0, y is 12. That is your intercept. That means that your graph is touching the y-axis at 12. So I can fill in my b already. My y-intercept is 12. Okay, but I do have to solve for that slope. And so slope is the change in y over the change in the x, which we have a formula, and I'm going to write it down here. It's y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1, and that's going to equal our slope. So if we solve, we're going to plug in our variables, or the numbers that we were given, and solve for the m. So I'm going to take my first point as this one here, and say 8 minus my second point as this one, 6, and that's over a -2 minus a -3. So I'm going to add the opposite for both of these guys, and so I get 2 as my numerator over a 1. So my slope is 2 over 1, and we can write that as a 2 if we want, or we can write it as 2 over 1. So I'm going to just write it as a 2, and now I'm going to write the equation of my line. Y equals mx plus b, plugging in my m, plugging in my b. So this would be y equals 2x plus 12. Okay, and so number 3 is done, but now we have to move over to this is like a whole separate problem on this side, and so we have to do this problem. So we're given this time, instead of a set of data points, we are giving a graph, and so we can see our line. And so we can see that our line is crossing the y-axis right here at this point. Well, what point is that? That's when y is 1, 2, 3, 4. So our y-intercept is 4. And now we have to figure out what our slope is. So I can tell that my line is going down and to the right, and so that makes my slope a negative slope. So I'm going to put my negative in, and now I'm going to count my rise over my run. So I went from this point, and I went down 1 and over 1, 2, 3. So my rise was 1, and my run was 3. So my slope is negative 1/3. So remember, the equation of the line is y equals mx plus b, and we have to plug in our m and plug in our b. So y equals, my m is negative 1/3 x, and my b is a positive 4. Sorry, my pen's being funny. Positive 4. And that's the answer for this last problem on this page. So we're going to move over to our next. And we have another function. We're graphing, and we're showing a relationship. And remember, a relationship is shown through that line. Okay, it's the correlation in which direction it looks and what's happening. So Peter is starting a video store, and he charges his friends $2.50 to join the club, and then $1.50 to rent each movie. Okay, use the graph to plot the relationship of the cost versus the videos rented, and plot the ordered pair that represents the total cost of joining videos or the video club and renting 3 movies. So let's do that first. If we rent 3 movies, we are paying $1.50 per movie, so that's times 3, and we're going to get that we owe him $4.50, but we're not allowed to rent unless we join his club. So we have to tack on the $2.50 for that membership fee. And so we actually end up having to pay a total of $7. So the cost of renting the 3 videos is actually $7. And we can plot that as a point. Videos rented, if we say we rented 3, which would be that line, and it costs $7, which would be that line, the point on our graph is right here. Okay? But in order to show a relationship, we need another point. Okay, so let's think about what the equation of this line is. We know that we're showing a relationship. We know that we're graphing a linear line. So the equation is this. So think about what we did. We multiplied 2 things here. we multiplied the number of videos, which could change. I could have 4 videos, I could have 5 videos, by $1.50. That makes the $1.50 the slope. And so what we really need to figure out is what that b is, the plus b. Where is it crossing the y-axis? So if I rent 0 videos, I don't owe him any money for the videos, but I still owe him a membership fee. And the membership fee is what we added. We added that $2.50. So that's actually our b. And so we can plot that we owed him $2.50 even though we rented 0 movies. And now we have 2 points that we can connect and make a line. Okay, and so when you do this problem, you have to show the dot for 3 video rentals, which is 3, 7, which was this point up here, 3, 7. And you also have to show this intercept point, which is 0 videos rented is still going to cost you $2.50. So it's 0, 2.5. All right, moving on to our next problem. We have to use the table to plot points, and we need to find 3 ordered pairs or 3 points. Now again, I don't care if you use this chart or if you make your own XY chart over here. It doesn't matter. But remember, this XY chart is basically this column right here. Okay? So I'm going to do it according to their method, and then I'll do it the way that some of you like to do it. So I'm going to choose my X values. I'm going to choose -2, 0, and 2. And I'm going to figure out what Y is. So Y is 3 times -2 plus 1. So my Y is really a -6 plus a 1, which makes it a -5. So when X is -2, Y is -5. That's one of my points. Okay, and if I was doing this in the traditional XY chart, I would have said, if I plug in -2, I get out a -5. Okay, now plug in a 0. My equation stays the same. This is the equation of the line I'm dealing with. So plug in a 0 for X. Y is equal to 3 times 0 plus 1. So that means Y is equal to 0 plus 1. Well, that makes Y 1. So my point is 0, 1. And next I'm going to plug in a +2. So Y is equal to 3 times +2 plus 1. So Y is equal to 6 plus 1, which makes us 7. So when X is 2, Y is 7. And now I have 3 points that I can graph on my line. I have -2, -5. And it fits here. And I have a 0, 1, which is here. And I have a 2, 7, which is here. And now I can connect my dots and I can show the linear line. Okay? And so that's how we do this problem. We're going to move on. This problem takes us back to the very beginning when we had to solve for slope. And slope is the change in y over the change in x. So on this problem, you just have to take a look at the points that they gave us, and here they are. So I can use rise over run, and I don't actually have to do any math. I can see that my line is going in a negative direction, so I'm going to put a negative. And now I'm going to calculate rise over run. Well, it went down 1, 2, and it went over 1, 2, 3. So 2 over 3. So my slope is a -2/3. And now on problem number 7, they didn't give us a graph. You can totally take those points and graph them on a chart and calculate rise over run. Or you can use your formula, which is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1 equals slope. And so we're going to plug in our points. I'm going to choose this guy as my point number 2. So I have a -2 minus a 4 over a -1 minus a -3. And I always add the opposite. And so I end up with a -6 over a +2, and that reduces to a -3. And so my slope is -3. So I'm going to write -3 on the line and box my answer. Okay, that's it for tonight. Make sure you've taken notes. Make sure you show all your steps. And this will be just like your test that you have tomorrow.